I would like to share this file with you. This is a file that I use a lot. So this is a sort of a startup file. It includes a studio and some custom settings. So I'm just going to go through them quickly, and then we will create something. Create something nice looking just to test our studio setup. For those completely new to Blender, then you simply use the middle mouse button to orbit, and you scroll in and out to move in and out, and you hold down the middle mouse button and shift, or shift the middle mouse button to orbit. You also find those actions here. The colorful gizmo is the orbiting, and the magnifying glass is zooming in and out, and the hand is to orbit. These two other ones are toggling in and out of camera view, and this one is sort of switching between orthographic and perspective view. You can hide these by just disabling this icon here, and I normally don't keep them on because they're just taking up space on the screen. I don't use the shortcuts. And this button here also sort of takes away the overlays, but I'm gonna keep them on. If you wanna keep this file as your startup file, so if you want to see this when you open up Blender, you simply go to File and Defaults and Save Startup File. So now this is basically what you will see every time you open Blender. The first thing is to take a look at this little setup we have here with these lights. So what we are looking at, I'm gonna go out of the rendered view into just solid view. What we're looking at is 4 lights, a camera and a control, plus this background and a cube. You can also see this in the outliner. So the control is this circle looking object, also called target control. So if you select it by left clicking on it either in the 3D viewport or the outliner, you can press G, and then you can move it around, and you can see that the lights and everything is sort of following it. If I go into the rendered view, you can also see that happening sort of real time, how the lights are following it, plus the camera as well. So the camera angle and the focus point is linked to this. Alright, you can also do it the other way around. So if you select one of the lights and you press G to move it, you can see that it's sort of locked to the object. So it's basically just really easy to adjust the lights and, you know, angles of things and whatever. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like this for now. Now I'm gonna go into the world settings. I'm gonna hide the studio, all of it. So in the outliner, I'm just gonna uncheck this eye. Everything goes black because there's no light source. But I'm gonna pull this down a bit. I'm gonna change it from object to world. And here we have some nodes. There is an HDR and this custom setup here, which I've made into a node. If you change the light into 1, you should get the cube back. If not, if it appears pink, that basically means that the HDRI is not connected properly, so you might need to put that back into the node. The background color is gray, as it shows here, but it has no strength at the moment. So if I put it up to 1, you see that that's basically sort of what fills the void behind the cube. If you change this color, it will change accordingly. But this is completely disconnected from the light in the scene. So this node that I made is simply just a control that gives you, that separates the light in the background and the light in the scene. So you can decrease or increase the light of the environment, and same with the background. If I connect the color of the HDR into the environment, you can actually see what type of environment is giving us the light. But we don't want this to be the actual background of our cube. That's why I made this node. So I'm just gonna turn this back to some grayish color for now. Something like that. So this can also be accessed through the world tab in the world properties with these 2 values here. So you can just take them back down to 0 if you like. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna turn the studio back on because that's what we're going to be working with. Next things to look at is to make sure that you have the render engine that you prefer, but I'm actually going to change to cycles now. So we don't need this now. We don't need this workspace. So I'm just gonna pull this up. I'm not gonna completely take it away. Just hide it for now. And we are gonna subdivide our cube. We don't need to be in rendered view. So I'm gonna just go back to solid view. I'm gonna go and select my cube. Go into the modifier tab and add a subdivision modifier. I'm gonna crank that up to, let's say, 4 in the viewport levels, and then I'm gonna apply that modifier. Now this is the geometry of our object. So it has sort of become like a little sphere. And now I'm gonna add another modifier, which is the multi-resolution. I'm doing this because the multi-res is really good for sculpting. You're not really getting into why at the moment, but it sort of gives you a really good control of the levels of details you can sculpt onto the object or into it. So I'm gonna just increase that to something like 2 by just clicking the subdivision or subdivide button. And now we're ready for sculpting. So we can just do that by simply choosing the sculpting workspace. And we have all these tools on the side here. I'm not gonna go through exactly what they do. I am no expert in this. But I'm gonna choose the clay thumb tool. And you notice that this little gizmo, this little icon, it sort of follows the surface. It's really convenient. It shows you like where you are applying the sculpting tool. So you just simply left click and drag. And you can see that it's sort of making some changes. And I'm just gonna sort of take away that really mathematically perfect shape. So kind of make it a bit more into a clay-like object. So this is just left clicking and dragging. Of course, feel free to explore the other tools, what they do and how, and just make some random object or whatever you like. I'm gonna go into the outliner and I'm gonna hide the background because it's sort of stopping me from being able to sculpt from below. So I'm just doing something really random here. Okay. I'm also gonna see if I can maybe use something else here. Maybe this one here. Ooh. This tool is sort of, you just left click and then it's nice to sort of, you basically just move the cursor sort of in a circular motion to twist it like this quite manually. And if you want to get like bigger and smaller, you can press F and then you can change the scale of it. Alternatively, you can also change the scale up here, or the radius, and the strength as well. You also have a lot more detailed sort of settings for each brush you're using in this sidebar here. And that's, if you don't see this, it's in the top in this sort of wrench and screwdriver icon. So I'm just gonna sort of create some kind of a weird looking thing. And feel free to just go crazy here. There's a lot of tools that can give you like a lot of crazy sort of results, and you can really quickly sort of start to sculpt characters or just any abstract shapes or something, So I'm happy with this because this will give us a nice result in the studio. So when you're ready, you can just simply go back to the layout workspace. We go back to this and we already see our object sculpted there. I'm gonna show the background again. So now it's sitting there beautifully lit, but we want to give this some texture. So I'm gonna pull this down again, this workspace here, which is the shader editor. And with the object selected, I'm gonna change from world to object. It already has some material. If it doesn't, you can just click on new material in the top here, and then you get to the same place I'm now. And I am gonna make it more gray, like really gray or really dark. And you can see that we sort of see some of these polygons and like these sort of quads. So you can help Blender make this more smooth by just right clicking and shade it smooth. So that will make most of them sort of disappear. But now I'm gonna add in the shader editor, I'm gonna I'm gonna press Shift A and I'm gonna search for noise. Noise texture. Press enter to select that. Left click to drop it in, and we can connect this, the color of it, directly into the roughness. Nothing really happens here, but we will need to add in a color ramp. So Shift A to get the search bar, and search color ramp. So enter, and I'm gonna just drop it onto this line. You can see how it gets highlighted. So I'm gonna just left click, and then it sort of gets connected properly. I am gonna connect the color of the color ramp also on the base color, because that way I can see what I'm doing more visually, because I want to make this noise texture determine where it's rough and where it's glossy. So I'm just gonna pull these values, or these flags, sort of closer to each other, so I can see already it's starting to have an effect. I'm gonna change the noise texture from 3D to 4D and play with the scale. Maybe make it a bit bigger, something like this. And to get it less blurry, something like that, I'm gonna change the detail from 2 up to 16. This is sort of the max. So we have, whoops, left the camera view. You can press 0 to jump into camera view if that happens to you. Alright, I'm happy with this. I'm gonna disconnect the base color because I want the color to be unified, but just the roughness to be sort of different in different areas. And I don't want it to be completely glossy, so I'm gonna change the black value by selecting that flag, clicking on the black value and pulling that up slightly, and the white value, pulling that down slightly. Maybe the black value should be even more bright. Of course, this is all just your own preferences. This is no there's no right and wrong here. I'm just showing you how you can use textures and the color ramp to sort of give different, you know, different feels to your object. The W value just sort of like shuffles. It just generates a new texture from the same values here. And of course you can change the color, which is then just in the base color of the principled shader. And then you can of course just make it more bright or dark, whatever you feel like. I'm gonna keep mine just really gray blackish, something like this. Okay. Now I'm gonna hide this again. Pull this up. I want to go to top view by pressing 7 in this 3D viewport here. I'm gonna select my camera by left clicking on it and pressing G, and then I'm gonna start moving around and just see like sort of what is a nice angle. Pressing 3 to go to side view, and G again to move the camera down. You can also move it further away, and with the camera selected you can go into the camera settings and change the focal length. So now it's 150, which is a lot. Like 25, you know, like a this would be something like a sort of like a camera phone setting. But we want to go maybe to like 250. It's a lot. And I want to take this target control. You can also select it from the outliner. Remember that. And I'm going to move it to the sort of the edge of it. Just looking at where the focus is situated. You can also, in the output properties, you change the resolution. So right now it is sort of like a 4K resolution. So you can hover over one of the fields and then do Control C, or like copy. That would be Command C on a Mac, and then just paste it into the other field. Then you have the same values. And now it's a nice square format. So I'm gonna select my camera and sort of move closer in. Maybe adjust some of those lights. You can also go with the light selected. You can also go into the light, the light properties, and here you can change both the strength, which is the power, and the color. So you can also give it like a different, you know, You can give it some sort of stylized, make it into a more stylized scene, like something like this. Start, yeah, okay. But I'm gonna keep it quite plain, like that. And then you go into the render properties when you're happy with the lights, the colors, the camera placement, and also I didn't mention, or did I, the f-stop, which is the aperture, and it basically the lower this goes, the more like the sort of the narrower the focus field is. So if it goes to like 0.1, you notice that the edges are now sort of blurry. So the point where the target control is actually in focus, which is somewhere there. Or like that sort of, that plane of it, right? Okay. This is way too small. So I'm gonna go back to 1.4 maybe. It's more realistic. So when you're happy with this, you're happy with the lights, you're happy with the colors, everything is good. You simply just go into the output, make sure that this is correct. 50% means that it's gonna render it out on a 50% of these values. And so if you do 100, it will give you like a 4K or like it will give you this output basically. Now I'm gonna go back into my render settings or properties, go into sampling and make sure that I have adaptive sampling checked. Render is 15 and 15, which is pretty low. That's what we're looking at here. I recommend maybe 10 times that, so change the render to 150. And yeah, let's just go for it. So I'm gonna just go up here to render and render image and wait for it. And then when you have finished the render, you can simply go into image and save as, and then save it wherever you want, as a JPEG or PNG or whatever you like. Okay, this was it. This is it for now. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you can make good use of this file, and so just don't go crazy. And thank you for watching.